Welcome to episode 8 of the Blokebusters podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Paul.
And today is December 12th, 2012. 12/12/12.
Oh, yes.
And today we will be discussing Lincoln.
Yes, Lincoln. This is directed by Steven Spielberg, released through DreamWorks, through their Touchstone company, unless you're in the UK, in which case 20th Century Fox is bringing this to you. And it is, very briefly, about pretty much the last 4 months or so of Abraham Lincoln's life, dealing primarily with the passing of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, and most of the trials that he had to face, getting it to the House, getting it through, and a couple of other little things.
Personal trials,
yeah.
Set on the backdrop of his family life, so-called family life. What he was allowed to have, pretty much.
But we'll get to that.
We will get there in due time.
Well, the opening of this film, you see a couple of soldiers, a couple of black soldiers, talking to a figure. You're not sure who it is. Well, you know that.
I thought we were watching Glory when it began, and I'm like, oh, hey, I love Glory. I'm happy to sit there and watch Glory. But
they're very much just talking about how the war has been going so far, and you hear this person ask, so what's your name? Where are you from? Like, what have you been doing?
Yeah, see, at this point, it's a reverse camera angle. So we see the back of his head. Yeah.
And you see a very very shadowy back of the head.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to know who it is.
Of course we do.
Yeah, again, anyone that is coming into this film knows
that
exactly
has sat
who it
in
is.
this film wants to, should hopefully have a bit of a brain between their ears.
And it's just a very, pretty much open and honest conversation, and not trying to jump ahead too quick, but you see it again in the film later, this style of talking which happens in real life where someone is talking and then someone else starts talking and either overtakes the person or the two people are talking in tandem. And I did like that. Like, they had the one guy starting to talk and then this other guy is just throwing his own agenda in, and you do see the first guy react sort of like, what are you doing? I'm trying to talk here. But then, of course, the camera does turn around and you see that it is Abraham Lincoln sitting in a makeshift wooden tent, something, whatever it is.
Yes.
Abraham Lincoln, played by Daniel Day-Lewis.
A has-been if there ever has been.
Just terrible.
Yeah, so happy he retired, yeah.
And this is, I'm sure we'll talk about this more as well, but this is Daniel Day-Lewis. This is Lincoln.
Yeah, you're seeing as close to anyone will ever see Lincoln on screen.
And he's Lincoln, as I'm sure everyone knows, is famous for owning the patent which gets boats over obstacles in water. Like, he's the only president to have ever owned a patent. And the reason that he created this invention was because he got stuck twice. Twice he was on a boat that got stuck and decided, I'm going to fix this.
Had it.
Apparently it's a little thing that dangled over both sides. It inflates and it gets you up and over the...
I was not aware of this.
And neither were, I'm pretty sure, everyone listening to this. But now you know.
Yeah, man, that's half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
Lincoln, a real American hero.
Oh, we're not.
And the train has derailed already.
Yes, Abraham Lincoln, of course, generally ranked in the top 3, if not number 1 spot of greatest American presidents. For those of you who don't know, and I didn't actually know, the other 2 are normally Franklin D. Roosevelt and George Washington.
So John F. K. is probably going to be pretty up there too, John F. Kennedy, but
And I know that generally in the assembled masses, people, when they're putting them in there, like the people that normally are printing out lists of this stuff, it's normally Lincoln, George Washington, Franklin D. Roosevelt, in that roughly that order, maybe different. And
I would say he's my personal favorite, even though he is, I guess I would, identify mostly with the Democratic Party, but Republican there. Although, parties were very different at that time.
I was actually going to say, I don't know
a Democratic style, Southerners a lot,
I don't know a lot about the history of politics in America, but
the country dynamic has changed.
Yeah, given Democrats
vastly.
and Republicans now.
Yeah.
I would not have said a Republican.
I would probably get along much better with Republicans in 1860 than But
anyway,
but this is not NPR.
Oh, no.
On with the movie.
Yeah, well, the only other fact I will say, the very first presidential assassination. I will say successful. On the off chance that there were some before that just weren't successful. I know that there was someone, possibly a president, who was shot in the middle of a speech and finished the speech before getting any aid.
We had, what was it? Harrison, I believe, that took ill in office. I forget. That was in early 1800s, I believe. I don't know. We can edit this out if I'm entirely wrong.
Not necessarily the first death.
But definitely the first intentional.
The first successful assassination of a president.
Yes.
Spoilers.
And I thought the boat just sank at the end of this film, but once again, wrong movie.
Yes, just...
those darn historical dramas. We covered it in Apollo 13, but I love them.
So yes, as we were saying, Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln, again, fantastic portrayal of Lincoln. This Lincoln, you see very much when he's talking to people, wanting to get a point across, he will go into the story mode, as it were. And I liked it. I wasn't aware going in that Lincoln was sort of a fan of the storytelling to get a point across. And very nice sort of surprise that some of the film is taken up by just having Lincoln sit down with some people and tell a nice story, sometimes tell a very funny story. And again, later in the film, you see that happen and someone walks off, just like, I'm not listening to this, not another story, no.
I thankfully had an excellent government teacher in high school, and we also blessed enough to have this Civil War class, and he always regaled us with Lincoln stories and actually would dress up as Lincoln once a year.
Oh, nice.
And I have to say it, Mr. Sell, you are now my second favorite portrayal of Lincoln. Sorry, you had to take a hit by Daniel Day-Lewis, but if you're going to get beaten by someone, it might as well be by Daniel Day-Lewis. But we always heard a lot of anecdotes he'd tell us about, and inspired me to buy a quote book. I mean, he's known for hundreds of quotes.
Right.
Perhaps you can correct me. I believe it's a comedian we both enjoy, John Mulaney. It might have been him that said that he went to the hotel and
Keep going.
the quotes around every day. It was like a Lincoln quote or something. And that there was something, the one day it was like, whatever you are, be a good one. He's like, how could you attribute that to Lincoln? It's like, hi, by Abraham Lincoln. He's known for more profound things as well.
Well, I can't say I've heard that if it's John Mulaney, but it could be.
I don't know. Correct me on Twitter. I'm sure. I know I get all those people confused, but definitely a very philosophical, insightful man. Always ready to just bring humor to a heavy situation while still not lightening it. And just being able to convey the message very quickly, where he's coming from in a quick story. Maybe not too quick, but it's a fascinating way of communicating. It was well known for it, I should say. But
well, I would say probably the best example of what you were talking about. We mentioned it before we started recording, where they're waiting for news from attack on a port. I believe a port and a city. They're trying to take the last. Trying
to break the last will of the Confederacy.
And while they're waiting for it, Abraham Lincoln comes along, and again, this is the point where the guy, he starts to talk, and the guy is saying, like, no, I'm not listening to another story, you're not doing this to me, I'm off. And he tells the story of...
Completely unaffected by that, by the way, which I loved. It's just like, okay, he doesn't want to hear it, I'm going to keep going.
Very much the same as me. If there's something you got to say, it's going to be said, no matter who listens to it. I will finish the story.
Very even keel, sorry, continue.
That's right. He sits down and tells the story of a lord who is visited by an American of some sort. I cannot remember the exact name of the fellow in question. And the lord is saying, you must go to the Privy. You absolutely had to. So the guy goes in and notes a portrait of George Washington in there. Doesn't think too much of it, sits down, does the necessary, and leaves, and then doesn't say anything to the Lord all evening. And then at the very end, the Lord says, I had to know, did you notice the George Washington
didn't mention anything
in the Privy? And he said, yes, I did. And I said, what do you think of it? It's like, I think it's absolutely fine. It's like, what? The portrait of George Washington found country? Like, in the Privy, is that not unless they paid for it? Is that not incorrect? Yeah. And the guy says, no, sir. Nothing will make an Englishman shit quicker than the sight of George Washington.
I think it's quite appropriate to place it there, yeah.
And of course, everyone laughs. And then he goes on with like, and what I'm trying to say, and again the mood comes down because they all know they're waiting for this news of so many casualties on either side. And of course, they take the port, but they don't take the city, or if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm sure there's multiple history books that can tell me exactly what happened all throughout this war. So I'm not going to try and remember too.
We're going to try to have a running time a little under the time of the film. As you said, brought the mood back down, and kind of ease everyone's tensions a bit, Yeah,
and I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not a one-trick thing. You see him throughout the film, like with different people giving some of these anecdotes or just general analogies and metaphors, and he's just very deliberate about it, and he just seemed to be his way of telling stuff, and as you say, it was his way of telling stuff, and I enjoyed seeing this Lincoln because it's very true to life, and just because I would have loved to have met the guy. I mean, must have been a fantastic guy to just be around.
It's just, you get the feeling if you would meet him, you meet those few people in your life where you're just kind of captivated by that. Yeah. You know there's something special about him. Maybe you can't put a finger on it, but you're going to listen to every word they say.
Yeah.
And you're just happy to be around them. Just... That's golden. You're in a good place. And, fried gold, so to speak, to be around those kind of people.
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Yeah. But I would have to imagine he was one of those people.
Yeah, and I'm sure, as we see in the film as well, there's people that don't want to be around the guy. But
no, obviously, given his end, there was another side to the coin.
But we'll touch on that a bit later.
Yeah, but I did enjoy. I wanted to discuss quickly the as much as a movie can be exciting when it's about passing an amendment. I did enjoy those scenes, but what really played well for me were those quiet, emotional scenes, or maybe just not so emotional, but just quiet, slow scenes with his children, or his youngest child, or his wife, or you just really get to see how the world was weighing on his shoulders, and how he was just not really letting his family deal with that, and just, that's his job. And I think it's in the opening 10 minutes of the film, I said to myself, I love this movie, because it's when he sees his son sleeping with
the old pictures.
And he just, old man Lincoln, just lays down on the hardwood and just lays with his son and just strokes his hair. And I'm like, I like this movie. I think I'm in right now.
Well, one thing I liked about that scene as well, at the end, his son is kind of waking up and says that he wants to see, I can't remember the name, but I can only guess it was the name of one of his dead sons, or maybe a friend or something. Might have been George or something like that. And Lincoln has to say, I'm sorry we can't see him. He's been gone for some time now.
Yeah.
He's not saying he's dead, but he's not coddling the boy. He's just trying to put it down as gently as he can. Yeah. And I will say, short of Kevin Smith's writing in this film, very much how people talk, I found very true to life of how conversations go and how people do, again, talk over each other.
Yeah, and how an argument really works. There's no, when he and his wife are arguing and, about not dealing with his son's grief.
Yeah.
Or the grief of his son passing, I should say. I love that scene. Imagine, obviously this is a somewhat work of fiction, but I imagine that could very well have taken place.
Oh,
I wouldn't have no trouble, even if it wasn't those two people themselves, but somewhere, sometime that conversation has happened, pretty much word for word, I bet.
Well, and that scene, this is jumping ahead to about the middle of the film or something, but that scene is fantastic where you see Mrs. Lincoln has, in private, pretty much lets down all her barriers and is just this somewhat scared woman who cannot deal with the grief of this and is utterly shocked by the fact that her husband seems to be absolutely fine with it, seems not to be dealing with it whatsoever, or has dealt with it so quickly. And she's kind of on the warpath, going on at him and on at him about how he's not feeling about it, and then you do see Lincoln actually snap, sort of, to finally be pushed a bit too far.
Yeah.
And you see that there is so much that he is not saying.
Yeah.
That is affecting him, and again, this is turning into Daniel Day-Lewis Love Fest, but just that portrayal of the man who has so much on his head, and he just lets some of it out in that scene.
Yeah.
Where, I think she says, like, how can you be so cold and heartless? How can you not be thinking about him all the time? And he says, I am.
Yeah, like, just because I'm not saying it or showing it, it's killing me. It's,
every day I just can't not think about it. And, something along like, who are you to tell me how to grieve? Like this.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes, and jumping way ahead, just to shed a little light on that, towards the end of the film, is that, he tells his wife, I think we've been miserable long enough. You know? Like, really, for people, when you think of Lincoln, you think, wise and freed the slaves and, and was a great president, but had a very rough life. I mean, son died, another son died,
I believe.
After,
Well, did he have 3 or 4 sons?
I don't want to answer because I'm going to screw it up. But I didn't get my Lincoln history in, but I think it was 3. But,
because I saw there was... And it would have been...
I believe, one maybe lived to adulthood?
You saw his oldest son,
Robert,
coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And, he lived, and another random piece of trivia, I believe the last direct descendant of Lincoln died about 10 years ago. Yeah. Something like that. Because it was only him that went on and had more children. Yeah. And the young boy that we see, he actually died at the age of 18. Mm-hmm. Right, so the Lincoln family is not.
A superstitious person might say cursed, but I mean, for as many great things as he did not get much in return himself.
Yeah, well, there are some people that are just like that. No matter what happens in their lives, they soldier on, and that was Lincoln.
But
definitely.
Definitely should. I mean, but this film's a wonderful little glimpse into that life. It's in not all sunshine and hey, the slaves are free, and I'm Abraham Lincoln. You're welcome. And, hey, let's go see a Broadway show. The end. And I did love, I don't know whose decision it was. I'm sure it was a collaboration with Spielberg, possibly the writers, and Daniel Day-Lewis. But the voice, because when the typical thing, I don't know if you're aware of this, is like everyone thinks Lincoln had this big booming voice because of how tall he was.
Yeah.
But all historical accounts says he had a very weak and timid voice, very high in the register.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how Daniel Day-Lewis' voice comes out, and it's wonderful.
Very good. There's only a couple of points where he's really going deepish.
Yeah. Everyone thinks it's 4 score. It was very shy and weird.
Well, I would say, going into, say, to quote from an excellent body of work there, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which was, I think, my first ever experience of Abraham Lincoln.
And if you want to go for source material, that's where to start.
I was 9? I don't know.
I guess I can't fault you.
Growing up in England, we didn't get much Lincoln history taught. It was more the World Wars and stuff for us.
Fair enough.
But the Abraham Lincoln that he is very much sort of, I'm Abraham Lincoln. And yes, and then of course I think I've seen the odd bit here and there where it's just someone pretending to be Lincoln, and as you say,
and always with the top hat, which he hardly ever wore, reportedly.
I was going to say, I think he only wears it twice in the film, and it's only at I think once at a speech, and possibly. Does he wear it at the incredibly formal function that they have? That's about it.
So real quick on that one speech, I forget what it was for, but it was like 2 sentences. That's my speech. As and like kind of what's said is, at least in my head, they all can't be winners. Known for being a great orator.
Well, that scene I loved because it almost showed him as being incredibly not that great a public speaker, just because he gets out his notes. It's like.
They couldn't remember 2 sentences.
The band's going, and then and now, President Lincoln, and then just kind of gets up, takes the speech out of his hat, looks around, opens up the paper, puts his glasses on, and it's like, And now we have this, and it's
Blah,
somewhat
blah, blah,
stilted.
flag, blah, blah.
Yeah, this flag flying free will represent the and as he closes it up, he says, "Yeah, that's my speech." and then there's a ripple of laughter in the crowd, and you realise like that's probably what it was like. Unless he was giving the incredibly important speeches.
And this was the Gettysburg Address, which also very short but powerful.
And I believe quoted pretty much
it's word for word in the beginning of the film. Yeah, I love that. But where were we? I'm sorry, I cut you off on saying something.
No, I was just saying with that point. Just I liked how he clearly I'm sure if it's only the really big speeches that he put all the effort into, and the rest are just like, oh, okay, well, here's the speech I have to give. I'm sure this was written for me by one of my aides. And, okay, that's it. Moving on. We're very much to the point, guy. So if we move aside from Lincoln a little bit for now.
If we must, okay.
Just for now. Some of the other people, Mrs. Lincoln played by...
Forrest Gump's mama, Sally Field.
And
which reportedly had to fight for this role. I did discover that.
Well,
she was not their first choice, from what I understand. And
do you know who the first choice was?
I do not know, but I know she pretty much campaigned to be in this film, and obviously won out. And I wasn't sure about her. I'm like, when I think Mary Todd, I don't really think Sally Field, but I will say that she held her own. I mean, when you're up against the level of performer, sorry, Love Fest, that Daniel Day-Lewis, you're happy to just hold your own. Sorry, Cameron Diaz, you did not. Leo, yes. Cameron, yeah.
There are some people you just don't want to go up against.
But,
Mr. Day-Lewis, I believe, is one of those.
It's got to be, got to be a pretty damn good performance. So I'm willing to look away from Cameron Diaz and watch Bill the Butcher. but enough said on that film, which I did love, by the way. Just,
Yeah, going into that briefly then, I found it, I think, maybe I wasn't as into the story, I thought it maybe a little bit too long, and Leonardo DiCaprio enjoyed, I tend to enjoy Leonardo DiCaprio in his roles. He tends to be fairly good.
It was a very long movie for a vengeance movie, is what, that's what it is. It's a vengeance film. I will avenge the death of my father.
I will avenge it eventually.
After you insert disc 2. Which I do remember, the first DVD I bought was 2 DVDs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I loved seeing that. I was like, what? 2?
Yeah, you can fit all of that on one disc. Marketing. Now on 2 discs. Yes. A bonus 3rd disc with 3 minutes of bloopers.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because most of the bloopers are on the 2nd disc, because they only needed to put the last half out.
Beats the day of you remember the 2 cassettes, or the 2 VHSs that were in these huge bundles.
Oh, yeah.
I think my mom had Dances with Wolves or something that was in 2, and you have to rewind both of them. Oh my gosh, it was awful.
I used to have a TV series that was entirely on tape, and it was 3 tapes. It was only, I think, 12 episodes, but it was 3 tapes worth of episodes.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, the real estate those things took up. But anyway, I think we were talking about Lincoln here at some point.
We were.
Or his supporting cast.
We were, but I will jump back to Lincoln for a sec. As I asked you before, did you know who was originally down for Lincoln? You said no.
Let me guess one more here.
Okay. The original guess was Tom Hanks, which I can see, and yes, the Spielberg connection there. Very good.
Spielberg connection? Okay, I will say... Oh, I don't have anything humorous. I thought I was going to have a zinger there. Go ahead and fill me in, sir.
All right. The original casted Lincoln, who was down for 5 years...
Sean Penn.
No, not Sean Penn.
He can do anything. Tim Robbins.
No, not Tim Robbins, although I that could have worked. Tim Robbins as Lincoln, that
Gary
could have
worked. Now I'm just going to go off. Okay.
All right.
Anyone in the cast of Apollo 13?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let you guess then. He's in the cast of The Grey.
The Grey. The wolf.
No, but wouldn't that be cool? A wolf as Lincoln.
Liam Neeson.
Here's, of course, Liam Neeson.
Oh, you could not have Liam Neeson play Lincoln, an American hero.
Well, Spielberg had him down for 5 years as playing Lincoln, and then he had to bow out in 2010. Okay. And then
only if his son had been kidnapped. If Lincoln's son had been kidnapped, then you get Liam Neeson to play it.
Liam Neeson, and the only way you can get him back is to pass the
Now listen, son, they're going to take you. That sounded a little more like Clinton, but I don't know.
I did not have sexual relations with that man.
Going to take you and sell you into real slavery. Okay, my apologies. I'm just saying, someone out there write it. Okay, it's going to be on Netflix streaming in 3 months.
Yes, Taken 3. The battle for Lincoln's son. Oh, God.
Hey, if they can make Lincoln versus zombies or whatever they had on there, I'm sure they can make
Abraham
that.
Lincoln Vampire Hunter, yes.
Well, they had the knockoff, I think, versus zombies.
Yes, there was a zombies one.
That's what the one I was referring to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that just to see how much they probably ruined that one.
I'm sure. But where were we at last?
So, back on to supporting cast.
Supporting. So Sally Field, yes, yay, nay.
Yeah,
yay.
I would say very good. I did. She won me over. Obviously, I'm sure she was supposed to in the scene, but the scene where she is talking to Tommy Lee Jones's character, whose name escapes me for the moment,
Thaddeus Stevens.
Thaddeus Stevens, that's it.
Yes.
And is basically going on and on about, oh, I am sorry that you didn't win the last election. And then, of course, there was the one bit where her son comes in and is like, Mother, you're creating a bottleneck just for the amount of time. Off the top of my head, I just thought, did they have that word back then? Oh no, a bottleneck at the door.
I don't know.
I'm sure it was you're creating a disturbance, I'm sure.
You're creating a hubbub.
A rubber.
I didn't get a rump out of that guy.
There's plenty of that later.
I would have loved to hear Lincoln say that.
or
any
even
of them,
the speaker of the house.
The good-looking younger, yeah. I can see him saying that. But Sally Field, yes.
Definitely, that scene won her over for me, and then again the scene where she's harassing Lincoln for not showing.
When she goes into William's room, their dead son, and
very
he comes in there.
Yeah,
Lincoln does
very well done.
And he consoles her, those things. But David Strathairn, I kind of wanted to cover.
Okay.
Not many people may not know that name, but it's a face, Yeah. And it's you're like, he's kind of in everything, but not in much at the same time.
Almost Kevin Bacon, as it was. He's in everything, but nothing you remember.
His first big role, as I can recall, was Good Night and Good Luck, where he played Edward R. Murrow. And he wasn't really a professional. I think wasn't really a professional actor at that time. Just had it kind of in his repertoire. Did have it, and I just love seeing him in everything. He's great, and he plays his Secretary of State, William Seward.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, kind of, the guy in Lincoln's ear, yes or no, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, obviously, and...
I wasn't sure, maybe I didn't quite follow it as much. At the beginning, he seemed very much like, Mr. President, you shouldn't do this, you should definitely not do this, you should do it. And then round about the halfway point of the film, it's almost like all of that's been forgotten, and he's like, right, well, we're doing this. Like, at no point do you see an internal struggle within this man of like, well, this is happening now, so I must go this way. It's just like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. You've done it, right? We're doing this. And I'm sure a good person in that position, that's exactly what they would have done. Probably exactly what this guy actually did.
But you're going to hear a pattern here. It could be because it is solid performance after solid performance in this film. Even by people that only have maybe one or two lines, they're filled by a great actor or someone you're probably going to recognize or think, I got to focus on the movie again because I'm going to be trying to think where I know this person from.
This film almost certainly is a pretty much a love letter to Lincoln, I'm sure, by some of the people. I mean, obviously it's about the passing of the 13th Amendment, but so much care has clearly gone into the casting of this film.
I would love to see the extras on the disc, about the casting process. I'm always interested in hear those who might have beens, like Liam Neeson and who almost were's, and but maybe we should move on to a young upstart, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah,
maybe we've covered him once or twice in this podcast.
Yeah. Now this guy, when you see the eldest son Robert, like I saw him. And I sort of got a hint of Heath Ledger, and I thought, no, it's clearly not Heath Ledger, he's dead.
Wait, how good are our computers?
Yeah, not yet, I think. And then I just started thinking, like, is that Orlando Bloom? Did they get Orlando Bloom to be Lincoln's son?
Did they get a fucking elf to play Lincoln's son?
Nothing against Orlando Bloom.
No.
Just saying.
Charming individual, I'm sure.
And then he started coming closer into focus, and it's like, that's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Again.
Of course it is. You should have slapped yourself, because of course, why wouldn't it be?
I know,
And I was just thinking to myself, this over the weekend, Inception was on TV. And
I missed it. I really wanted to watch that.
I mean, I have it on Blu-ray, but I never put it in. Yeah. But it's one of those things, on TV, I can watch an hour of this. And I don't know, there might be one or two big roles before that. Maybe, I think Brick, the high school noir was, but not a big, huge hit. But that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, might have been what got the ball rolling for him. I don't know. I have to look in his filmography here.
Yeah, I think he had a whole bunch sort of around time.
I mean, with this hit parade, though. Because it's just.
I would say 500 Days of Summer, like, it might not have been the biggest hit.
Yeah, but it was great for indie status. Yeah. That was a hit, I think.
Yeah, so that probably helps.
And Zoe, ladies and gentlemen, well, more gentlemen than ladies. Zoe, watch it now. Even though it's gonna break your heart. Oh, spoiler.
Well, not necessarily.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, enough of that. But anyway,
You never know. We might cover that very briefly.
Yeah, who knows? Man, maybe an indie cast or
something.
There we
go.
To be
continued.
To be determined. But yeah, obviously gives another solid performance.
Yeah, very much. And he really isn't in it that much. I was thinking about
a few scenes. Probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 big scenes. Yeah. I mean, he's in scenes, but maybe doesn't have a lot to do.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like, the scene where Mrs. Lincoln is chewing out one of the guests. He's the one that comes over and says, Mother, you're creating a scene. Yeah. And it's like, oh, he's there, and he's gone. Like,
I will say the mustache didn't work for me. But I know they all had facial hair then.
I will say that was why Orlando Bloom flew to mind.
That was a really bizarre mustache, and just Joseph Gordon-Levitt, do not try to pull that look off in real life, please.
Basically, How You Earn Looper, I'd say just go with that. You're probably fine.
That works. Yeah.
It's almost the same as when you see Bruce Willis now sporting the full mustache. It's like, it's not quite right.
No. Or Harrison Ford with the earring while we're on these things. I'm late, whatever. Okay, enough of that, Harrison Ford. Anyway. Raiders was on over the weekend too, real quick.
All right.
But anyway, so yeah, JGL in there. I don't know if he's going to be in a movie that's going to make less than $200 million at the box office in the near future or not. Right. I don't know. I'm probably just coming up with that number, but easily clearing 100. I think every big studio film he's in.
And just going into who was it that played the 3 sort of vote buyers?
They were led by James Spader.
Yeah.
Who is just, if anyone is familiar with James Spader's work, is just, this role's perfect for him. He's just, fat, frumpy guy, and does his own thing and says his own thing. And
I think his character is responsible for my favourite moment in the favourite comedic moment in the film, I will say, because there's another moment which was my sort of favourite moment.
Spoiler, I'm guessing, folks.
Yeah, that's what. When he's saying, like, one of the people I tried to buy the votes from nearly killed me, and then you see him trying to buy the vote, and as he's talking, the guy is just taking out his gun and starting to load it, and he's like, oh shit, stands up, and then the guy's about to fire, so he throws something at him.
Well, he gets one shot off, and then
he's about to fire. He throws the thing at him, which means he misfires.
Uh-huh.
So then the guy then starts projected out. It goes through the minute-long process of reloading.
Very much. That part of that felt a little contrived for me because that plays on the viewers knowing that's a joke of in retrospect and how much that would take to reload.
But obviously I knew that was how guns were back then, and then just seeing him he's about to run away and then realizes I can't leave this stuff behind, so he's picking everything up, grabbing it, and the guy's getting closer and closer to finishing off the shot, and so he ends up just throwing some dust at the guy.
Runs off and escapes another shot. Yeah.
Just one of those little scenes that they didn't need to put that in the film. They could have just left it with one guy almost killed me and then continue on with it. But they felt that they were able to throw that in there, a little bit of comic relief. And it's just, I thought it played really well.
It does. I mean, because as much as I love the film, it can become dry given the subject matter.
Yeah.
And I will say, if you're going to see Lincoln, if you're in there, I think you're probably expecting that anyway. Yeah. If you've known anything about the film, like I said, I like to keep myself in the dark, but still, I wasn't expecting Die Hard. You know, it's you have to be in a different frame of mind. You know, you're going to sit and you're going to learn and you're going to experience some things, and it may be slow in parts, but you're expecting that. At least to me, you should be. But those moments are still welcome when the tension's taken out, or there's a bit of comedy thrown in. Yeah, I still appreciate that effort. Yeah. Well, especially when they work as well as that scene did.
I went in. The only thing I knew was that it was about towards the end of Lincoln's life, and I knew that it had something to do with the slavery aspect, so probably passing this amendment. And so a couple of people told me, it's not really that much about Lincoln; it's more about the politics and all of that stuff. So I went in expecting, okay, there's going to be a fair bit of history dumped on me. There's going to be a fair bit of how this worked. And then, those moments where it's just a silly little thing that runs for a minute and a half or whatever, and all of these funny moments coming from characters that you may not even be expecting, especially Lincoln. I wasn't expecting some of the funny things that were coming out of his character, given how serious he is. And it was very welcome, especially given the runtime. I was thinking, okay, this might be a bit of a drag. Mm-hmm. As much as I wanted to see the film, I was expecting it. And then moments like that really helped and saw me through all the way to the end.
Yeah, I never felt like I needed to check the time or anything like that. Generally, that's because I had to go to the bathroom or something. When did they say this would be over? But, just for any movie makers out there, historical dramas, please have your congressional debates and scenes. Star Wars prequel makers, leave them. So historical dramas, yes. Star Wars prequels, no.
Yes. Anything that is supposed to be an action film can do without the boardroom meeting. So I think, unless it directly leads into...
on to issue 47.
Unless, of course, you have the Monty Python and the people oh yes, and people aren't wearing enough hats. Oh, okay, well let's just move on and say there's not a ship out there. And then the accountant from before bored and tried to make people walk the plank. I mean, that is how you go about introducing a boardroom scene into action film.
That was just my excuse to slam the Star Wars prequels once more. That's all that was. Then we failed.
Well, personally, I think the best way just to slam those is to watch the first episode of Space Season 2.
Oh, of course, yes.
The funeral pyre scene.
The funeral, yes. And that was right around that time, too.
That was the
wound is still fresh. Right. For all of us, it was fresh. Okay, let's not go into that dark place now. Yes. We have to go into the other dark place of Lincoln.
Yes. Well,
go ahead, sir.
No.
I lost it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say the other main name that we haven't mentioned. I figured we would probably talk a little bit about this since I think we have differing views on the guy. Tommy Lee Jones as
not so differing, perhaps, but
maybe in the film, no. But I think as a general thing, you seem to be a little bit against the guy.
Against? How dare you, sir? I'm nothing but a Tommy Lee Jones apologist. That's not true. Go ahead with your Tommy Lee Jones love fest.
Well, no,
and I will sit back quietly.
No, not a love fest. I myself, Tommy Lee Jones, I tend to enjoy him when he's on screen in a role. Like, I enjoyed him as K in The Men in Black, mainly because I enjoyed his straight-facedness, like just playing of it. You know, the second film, you can probably take it or leave it. Very good in the first film. I thought very good in the third film as playing the sort of weary guy who's everything sort of landed on him. Yeah, pretty much anything I've seen him in. I've not necessarily seen the full catalogue of Tommy Lee Jones's film, but anything I've seen him in, I thought he's given a relatively good performance in. Probably held down by the source material, if I were to guess. I'm sure he's actually a very good actor, and there might have been a couple of scenes where it's like, I've got to work with this. Okay, doing the best he can. And then in this film, as Thaddeus Stevens, I thought, I'm going to assume that this Thaddeus Stevens is, again, relatively true to life, and probably Tommy Lee Jones a very good choice for the guy. Pretty much very loud, outspoken voice, and in the film you see that can cause trouble for his.
He was one of my favorite aspects of this movie. I absolutely. I will say the bags under the eyes were not meant for a movie theater. Slightly distracting, those bags under the eyes. But other than that, he's a wonderful character.
Yeah, very good character. You start off, you see him, and it's just assumed that he's a rival of Lincoln's, and then you see all of a sudden, like, actually no, he's if anything, he's
he's an ally, but they just go about their mission in very different ways.
Yeah, they convene during the party scene, and they have a very good conversation about. Thaddeus wants just more, and Lincoln's saying, like, we can't do it that way. It has to go like this.
I think my podcasting partner will agree in not spoiling this, but all I will say is that Stevens, Tommy Lee Jones' character, has a larger incentive to feel the way he feels about this issue.
Yes,
that's all I will say.
Yeah, something in his life means that he wants this bill passed.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily for that reason alone, but definitely a huge part.
He seemed a fairly liberal guy, and therefore, black people.
A shame that liberal at that time was that we shouldn't own people. That's a liberal idea. That's kind of upsetting in itself. That it wasn't called common sense then. It's called being a liberal. But,
the biggest problem with that, of course, is in pretty much any age. You can look at it and just be like, really?
Yeah.
Really? This is how it was?
Yeah.
The namby-pambies that are saying, like...
But still, even as that character shows, there are still people of that time that know better. That know...
pretty much everyone on the side of Lincoln knows that slavery is wrong.
Yeah, like I said, he's always been against it, and getting off on... I don't want to get into too political waters where I will get chopped down. But
you can probably guess where we lean on these things.
But I will defend myself slightly by all I ever said to this man was, he's hit and miss, I believe is what I said.
Yes, that is what you said.
Okay.
Yes.
I did not say I hate the man.
No.
Coal Miner's Daughter, if we're going way back. Fantastic film. And The Fugitive, one of my all-time favorite action movies.
Yes.
No Country for Old Men as the grizzled old detective or sheriff or whatever he's playing in that. Loved it.
Well, again, I said I've always enjoyed it. Like pretty much anything I've seen him in, he's done well.
He maybe it's just a fault of him having such an extensive filmography that there are the misses in there.
There's always a miss somewhere.
Yeah,
even Tom Hanks, the fabled Tom Hanks, he has his
not recently.
No, but
not since like the 80s. Maybe.
No, I'm even going like really far back. The Dungeons and Dragons is out there to rot your brain movie that he was the star character.
And Turner and Hooch, as much as it gets played on TNT early in the morning, doesn't hold up too well. Dog, and he dies. Yeah. Spoiler. F that movie. Don't kill the dog, damn it. All right.
I believe it's actually a staple in cinema. You're not allowed to do anything to a dog. Cats, however, fair game.
Hell yeah. Frying by the dozen. All right. So I think we've covered Tommy Lee good, well enough there.
Very good. Very good character, I will say. I liked seeing, you see his journey through the film as well, of like being brass and like everything has to go this way, and then you see that the other side know he's like this and try and use that against him, and you see his coming to the realization of, if I continue this way, this might not happen. And there is a fantastic scene where he's told beforehand, like, if anything, just say you're for the legal freedom of everyone, like, and he's going into it, it's like, no, I will not say it, and then on the day it's like, no, if I say this, they win. Like, I just can't, and you see it all played out, and it's such a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and especially when he gets confronted afterwards, about, was it not having any backbone or like, not standing up?
Yeah, and you have been like nothing but completely for the complete abolition of slavery. Like, everyone is completely equal, and in there you're nothing like that. Like, I'm shocked by this, and he says that
you fool, essentially. Like,
if I had stood there and said that, this bill would not.
Yeah, he was looking bigger picture and not just saying the exact words.
I believe he said, like, for the future of this bill, and yes, I will say almost anything.
Exactly, and I loved that.
And so, as we've been saying, fantastic all around by pretty much everyone involved.
Yeah, I just wanted to run down. I'm not going to go into them, but you'll know some of these names, I guarantee you. You have John Hawkes, who is familiar to me. You have Jackie Earle Haley. In a small part. Bruce McGill, I think, is one of the best character actors, and he's usually a judge in things. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. I'm showing him a picture of Bruce McGill. Yeah. And if you're a Coen Brothers fan, which why aren't you? If you're Tim Blake Nelson, of course, pops up. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Who's in that? Jared Harris from Fringe and from
Sherlock Holmes. Again,
Sherlock Holmes.
Does a very good Moriarty. Not as good as Sherlock's
Would never
Moriarty.
have picked him for U.S. Grant, but I mean, it only has a couple scenes, and I
does well.
I'm like, hey, that looks like Grant, and this is coming from a guy who loves the movie Gettysburg and Gods and Generals. I think, hey, he fits right up in there with those Grants, and I think those are the big ones I wanted to mention.
All right, well,
yeah. I do want to mention Hal Holbrook, who's just a legendary actor, getting on in years, but he's wonderful in these small parts. He plays Preston Blair,
right?
And a lot of you will know him from Into the Wild. I think he got a Best Supporting Actor nomination. Did not win. I can't recall who did, but he's
but
just...
shame on you.
Yes, exactly. But he's a wonderful actor, and of course, just nothing but the same in this film. Yeah, Spader was fantastic. We already talked about him. And named Bilbo, which got me very excited for this Friday, folks. Every time they said Bilbo, I'm like, Hobbit. And then I had to refocus on the Lincoln drama.
I will say, just tanging onto that, I was slightly disappointed to realise that there will be no point where Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch will be on screen together, because Benedict Cumberbatch plays two voices in the film. He is not shown on screen, and I was a little bit no, but whatever,
we can't have it all.
I know that Martin Freeman will be on screen with the character that is voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch. That will be good enough for me, I'm sure. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah. I did want to talk briefly. I know we're running maybe not slightly long. I don't know, but. I would assume this is accurate. Like I said, I did not do extensive research by any means, but I was very fascinated by Lincoln's, you might call it dirty or scheming or plotting side.
Right.
People tend to kind of put him on a pedestal, as you should.
Honest Abe.
Yeah, pedestal. Honest Abe, and had this kind of holier than thou persona.
But I defy you to find anyone that is like that.
No, everyone has skeletons, but not that this was evil things. It just showed a man that was willing to do what was necessary for what he felt was right. Yeah. And by that, I mean, I'm referring to him essentially buying votes in the House.
Yeah.
By offering them jobs once their terms were up.
Because if you want to go into the real nitty gritty of it, he himself does not offer the job to the candidate. No. He basically says there are 20 votes. Well, there are a couple of continuity things that I was going to mention. This is one of them. He basically says there are 20 votes that are needed get them. And that's his sort of like,
at his cabinet. He also has cabinet. Get him, I don't care. Yeah. Stop her squabbling, get the votes.
And one of the continuity errors that I noticed in the film, I'm hoping I just misheard a line or something, but there's one point where they say we need 20 votes. Then there's one point where another character says we just need 40 votes for the win. And then later in the film it says we've got 13, we need 7. So either the first and the last one are wrong, or the one in the middle's wrong. But somewhere in there, they lost or gained 20 votes for something.
I would have to rewatch the film to know what you're referring to. Maybe 40 votes meant for the bill to pass, not
possibly
total votes, not
maybe
not just to buy votes. But,
again, I'm hoping I misunderstood that. The only other continuity thing that seemed to run that, there were a couple of shots that I was watching it, and I thought, really? It's just a couple of little mistakes, like Lincoln, when he goes to the war hospital with his son, and he's looking at some notes. Oh. And then he takes the notes and puts them in his bag. And then it cuts to the shot of his son. And while he's talking, Lincoln takes the notes and puts them into his bag. And I thought, I was like, really? You couldn't have maybe let the first one run a little bit longer with the voice going, and then edit it to him closing the bag.
I'm glad you brought up that scene. I did want to bring up something real quickly. I did like that scene where Robert is bound and determined to serve his country, and Lincoln says, I've longed to say what many fathers have been unable to say. I am the commander-in-chief, and you will not.
I do not need your permission to join the army. I'm the commander-in-chief. You do need my permission.
And he, I believe, slaps his son, which I would say would have been a wonderful time to say, bastard in a basket! Bastard in a basket! And would have brought the house down. Come on, folks. Yeah. The theater would have gone nuts. I'm just saying, Spielberg, you missed out on... Or just threatening to drink his milkshake, perhaps. I don't know. Would have gotten the point across. All I'm saying is I love Daniel Day-Lewis. When he's an oil tycoon killing people, and when he's the president of the United States... And when he's a homicidal butcher as well.
Yeah. And that, again, just touching on that scene again, something we mentioned before, it's just a fantastic scene because, Lincoln's gone in, seen the soldiers, his son has seen the body parts that are being chucked away and just saying, I had to serve. And you get the typical scene of like, I want to serve, you're not allowed to sit. But just the way it's played and how it goes on, it's just a fantastic scene between two people doing very good jobs at
someone knowing that they can't look at themselves in the mirror if he doesn't serve his country, and another guy that looks himself or knows he can't look himself in the mirror if he lets his son go off and die.
And of course a fantastic. I let him join. It's like, what? How good did you send us? He's nowhere near the front lines. He's helping the general with the mail. Like he's not doing anything.
Yeah. He's the president. He will not see combat if I say so.
I'm hoping that was. I can only imagine the son's like, right, I can enlist. Great. He goes and enlists. Like, okay, you've been served to General Ulysses S. Grant. It's like, what? Go. Let me go.
Essentially, the modern day of reading his email. You'll be reading his email for him and responding. That was the last thing I really wanted to cover.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, one thing I don't know if you would know as a Lincoln, I'm not going to say but knowledgeable of Lincoln, the walk at the very end when he's walking off and he's sort of almost as if he's got a bit of a limp, so up, down, up, down. Is that how Lincoln walked, or is there any documentation?
I don't know if that was just a personal choice by Daniel Day-Lewis or if that was historical based. I can't help you on that.
Because I had to say, I didn't notice that walk throughout the rest of the film, and then it's possibly my favorite last line. Obviously, we all know at the end of the film, he's talking to his cabinet, and you realise the bill's passed. Like, this is the point in his life where he was assassinated, and then he gets told by his servant, like, your wife's outside, you need to go to the play. You realise, okay, this is the last night of his life. And it's like, okay, well, he finally gets the gloves he's been asking for, leaves them behind. Like a fantastic little thing like that. And the last line that you see him give, I should say, is, I guess I had to go, I wish I could have stayed longer.
Yeah,
I was watching that scene, and you see them looking at him as he's walking off, like the figure he's got everything done, this has happened, and then it was starting to fade to black a little bit, and I thought this is possibly the best ending to any film I've ever seen.
I want to jump in if I can. I will say I still, since viewing the film, I felt that way then, and I feel that way now. I think that should have been the ending to the film.
It should have.
I'll be interested to know if that was Spielberg's choice, if that was studio notes, but I'm just interested to know. I mean, it very well could be as it was written, but a lot of times I'm just suspicious because a lot of times movies or studios feel the need to play to the lowest common denominator for audiences to make sure everyone's in. But everyone in that theater knows what happens to Lincoln.
Yeah.
You don't need to have the next scene I don't think you need to deal directly with the assassination at all. I mean, and this didn't directly, but it did have his passing.
Well, a good choice if you have to go with showing roughly what happened. They don't show his theater; they show the theater his son.
Which is kind of like a weird fake out. I don't know why you're doing a fake out at that point.
And it some
action's going to happen, but not in this theater.
It's like you're seeing
and that was true. His son was at an opera the same night, at another theater.
So you're seeing his son there. Like I didn't know that his son was at a different theater.
Yeah.
And then they're going, and then the curtain come down. And it's like, did they just change history here?
Yeah.
And then the guy runs out like, the president's been shot.
Yeah.
If there's anyone you want to criticize for his acting, I think that guy. The president has been shot.
Wait, let me go again.
Line. And
the
then
president has been shot. There's your winner.
President been shot? I hate that cliche.
Let's meet him at the pass.
And you get to see the son's reaction. And I thought an interesting choice to go with, like seeing the son's reaction to the news, and then you see the funeral, and you get to hear, obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis giving the last speech he gave, was it?
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, his second address, or whatever it was, the last proper big speech he gave. And I don't know if it was verbatim or not. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, given it doesn't seem that long when you're sitting in the cinema, and I didn't even think, like, I would have thought Abraham Lincoln, given the fact that he gave some big historical speeches, I just assumed they would be long. And watching this film, this guy is not for longevity.
He's about getting the maximum amount out of words and maximum effectiveness.
Yeah. Which, some people could definitely learn from that.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Mm-hmm. But I still feel that would have been such a beautiful ending to the film. Just have him walking off, and we know it happens.
Yeah.
And
well, even that, I felt that not having the speech that he gave, like maybe if they'd moved that to just like you hear for like fade to black, you hear some of the audio from that fade into the meeting he's having before he goes to the play. Mm-hmm. Like I wish they'd have kept his last scene spoken line as his last line in the film. Because I think that would have, even with the other scenes, that would have just had the impact. This is the last thing.
What I sensed was that, or what I sensed what they were going for is that his words live on and his actions more so.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the placement of that.
I get why it's there. I just feel that as a body of work, again, as you're saying, like, not having that scene where they're dealing with it, just having him walking away and that just being the last scene with those words being the last words spoken, I think that would have made this film just probably even top 3 for me. Like if they'd gone with that, like if they'd chopped it there, if they'd made the right, I would say the right choice.
I still feel like, well, that's like you feel you're making that movie and you feel like you're building to a conclusion and you have to have that, well, what's the movie if we don't have that last conclusion?
Yeah.
But I still feel it would have played very well without, and like I said to you at the time, I still feel there was no way to directly deal with the assassination. No. You would lose the entire audience.
Yeah.
For having that much of a beloved and charismatic and captivating character and played by those exact same adjectives of that actor, you can't on-screen assassinate that man.
No, I was thinking about it earlier. The only way you could have possibly done it, showing his assassination, as it were, is you see the stage, the camera pans, you see Lincoln, camera keeps panning to just past his head, and in slow motion you see...
Yeah,
Booth
it would have to
and,
be old style filmmaking where you don't show it. You just see the gun drawn.
Yeah, you see the gun, you see Booth's face, and then cut to maybe the son learning. Maybe,
But even that, I would have felt uncomfortable with. You know,
I mean, I'm just thinking the only way they could have possibly gone with it, and as you say, even that might be pressing it. That's really pushing the envelope there.
Yeah. It's just kind of you're losing the people that have been with you for 2.5 hours. But I think they dealt with it, if you're going to, in the best way you could.
Yeah, definitely. Well, second best way, not having that.
Well, I said if they're dealing with, if you're going to have it, if you insist on it.
Yeah, if it has to be in the film, you did well.
And by no means did it make me change my opinion.
No, yeah, definitely not an opinion. Just they could have done it just that much better.
Yeah,
just that little, just that little slight.
Yeah, great ending, and then it's Lord of the Rings, and you have 12 more.
Oh, they've done the ring. Oh, they're back at the Shire. Oh, they're still going. Now they're at a boat.
Now it's his uncle's ending. Now it's Frodo's ending. Now,
Now Sam's at the cottage. Credits, yay!
People were betting in the aisles. Is this the ending? Is this it? I'll double down. All right. But no, not quite. Not nearly that bad. And I love those films, I should say. But yeah, I don't know. Shall we get on with the ratings, sir?
I believe we should.
All right. Who should go first?
I'll go first.
All right. Let's not hold up the anticipation any longer.
All right.
Me. Wait. No, okay. All right. Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Go. Wait. Okay. Go.
All right. Well, my personal rating, I'm giving it a rating of what I think I would tell people to go and see, and it is very high. This film is one of the best films I've seen. Period. Just in terms of how the film is, like the acting in it, like there's not much about this film that I haven't already said. Continuity errors, little things, the ending that I can criticize. And this is a very good body of work. I have actually gone with a rating for the general recommendation of minus 0.3, which is quite high out there, and actually might be 0.1 higher than I gave The Dark Knight Rises, and I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that? Wow.
I am actually okay with that. I mean, Dark Knight Rises was a fantastic film. It just, for me, had a couple more niggly bits in there, and as a personal rating, I actually would push it higher to a minus 0.2. Just because, if that ending was different, I'd have forgiven everything and given it the highest rate.
Given it a 0, huh?
Maybe.
Wow.
It definitely would have been a 0.1, if not the 0. It's such a fantastic... I was captivated by the film. I was not expecting that. And it drew me in. It was fantastic. And I really don't know what else to say about it. Going into what we've already been into.
I definitely went in expecting to like it, hoping I'd love it, but expecting to like it. I mean... I'm a history buff, as I've said many times on this podcast, and so I knew I'd be in for that. So they'd have me there, and I love Lincoln as well, so I'd be in for that. And I had Daniel Day-Lewis, who I was fairly confident would not fuck this up. Confirmed on that one.
Very much so.
But so when all was said and done, I could not have been happier. I do want to say, as much shit that we have to wade through as far as quality of films are concerned in this day, I think it's a relief that big studios and big directors can still turn out pretty fantastic art. That's reassuring to me. They're not... I know they're still looking for money. I still know it's a business. I'm not naive on that front. But it's not all sequels and not all dredge and remakes. And
well, very quickly, I mean, the budget for this was, what, 50 to 60 million. It's so far made just under $100 million, so it's made its money back.
And it's going to do probably just as much on VOD and Blu-ray.
Unfortunately, we live in an age where Twilight is considered the height of, blockbuster summer, winter, whatever. Like, I mean,
I have heard the last film was quite good.
I
am intrigued enough to watch it. I will say I will watch it only because of the action I've heard of.
I will not, but I will just take whatever you say.
I will give you the full book report or film report on it, as it were.
Hollywood, more of this, please.
Yeah, and I really have felt in like the last 5 to 10 years, their great movies have been few and far between.
Yeah,
and I'm hoping we're coming out of that. There are still those great directors out there. Christopher Nolan and the Coen brothers and Spielberg here. It shows you can still get it done. And
when not associated with Lucas.
when not fucking with his old works.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Please leave your pieces in the past to speak for themselves.
Yes.
Let them
no
alone.
Schindler's List 2, please.
I was referring more to the E.T. tamperings and
I know, but given that they went and gave Indiana Jones another sequel, I wouldn't be surprised.
But for me, who's a big independent film fan, and like I've said before, there's just as much crap in that side of things as there are in the big budget productions, but very happy that something that's playing in this many screens can be this high quality.
Yeah.
I typically I've become a little pessimistic and disenfranchised and thought, well, if I just have a decent time, I'll like that's a good night for me.
Yeah.
And I was happy to have this experience.
Very.
And for that, I'm not trying to top you. This is my honest feelings. Minus 0.1.
Wow. Okay, yeah, I can see it.
I believe I rated The Dark Knight minus 0.2, which is previously my highest. I know we didn't officially cover it on a podcast, but I referenced it in our Dark Knight Rises when the podcast rose. But I believe that was my highest rating I have ever mentioned. And minus 0.1.
I can see
may
exactly why,
I may have to re-rate this in 5 years.
Yeah.
I may still be a little dreamy-eyed over it. But I don't think so.
No, yeah, and this film, there are films that you go back to and you think, like, it's not as good as I originally thought, but I think, as we said, Daniel Day-Lewis is Lincoln, and Tommy Lee Jones gives a fantastic performance as Thaddeus Stevens, and with the exception of that one guy announcing that the president's been shot, not a single drop ball in the entire film. And the setting, like they don't bother going with like big extravagant setting because it wasn't like that back then.
I did want to kind of close on that this would work so wonderfully well adapted as a play because you could have small sets. It's all pretty much Lincoln.
Yeah, Lincoln.
There are very few scenes that he's not a part of.
Yeah,
I mean, just a few set changes. It would work wonderful as a 3-act play, and I would be the first in line to buy that ticket.
I could even see at the end when the referendum's being voted on, the amendment being voted on, and Lincoln isn't there, but I can still see like the entire stage set up by like rah, and then the guy has to run to Lincoln. You just run to the corner of the stage, and it just lights up, and there's Lincoln at the desk. Like, is it okay?
Yeah,
there you go.
Kind of the backwards of Glengarry Glen Ross, which existed as a play first and was turned into a film.
Yeah,
this I very much think could go the other way. I don't know. It has those scenes. It's just dialogue and dialogue and dialogue. And if you love dialogue, you love this movie.
Yeah, proper intelligent dialogue.
As
well. Not just like
not Jack Reacher witty one-liner dialogue.
Yeah.
We will not be covering that. Just spoiler alert for you, sir.
No. I'm not even sure I want to see that one.
And gave him the old Jack Reacher the other night. That's what that sounds like. But, I don't know. Minus 0.1 for me. Minus
0.3 for me.
Well, I should say.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, 0.3, 0.1.
Yes.
If we just say point, there's a 0 in front of it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes.
All right.
And I don't know. I think that's going to nearly wrap it up for us.
Yes, very, very much so. I think we've covered almost everything we could probably cover from this one.
Yes. Thank you for hanging on, those who have.
Thank you very much. I will quickly do the thing. Follow us on Twitter @Blokebusters, Facebook.com/Blokebusters. We have the email blokebusterpodcast@gmail.com, or there's contact@blokebuster.me, Emmy. That's the new one.
Anyone out there, maybe I don't want to speak for you, but if you have perhaps themed ideas or, occasionally we're not doing new films, but if you want to see us tackle maybe a certain director you think we like or that you like, or an actor or a genre in the near future, we would be definitely willing, I think, to listen to those suggestions.
Oh, yeah. Just any and all comments, suggestions.
Yeah.
Well, just send them in.
Exactly. Correct our mistakes. We will love that.
Oh, yes. And I'm sure we'll possibly read them out maybe on the podcast.
Yeah. I don't mind. I do not pretend to know entirely what I'm talking about most of the time. I barely know my own name, sir.
Yes, we've covered that.
All right. Any sign off for you, sir?
I think we now have pretty much covered everything.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for me. I've been Brian.
And I've been Paul. And just remember that old famous Lincoln quote. Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes!
Thanks, folks.